Hey there, all you miniatures lovers on the interwebs. It's Monday, the 24th of January, 2022. I'm Doc Ian, and I'm here to ramble about miniatures. And I'm sounding kind of hoarse. I had a cold briefly last week, just a normal cold, not COVID, don't worry. But I often, the normal course of events for me when I have a normal cold is that it sticks in my throat for about a week after. I'm cured of, I'm not sick anymore, but just kind of it's kind of rattling around in my throat. So hopefully gone by next Monday. Anyway, what did I complete since last week? Well, I painted all these Reaper Bones figures from the Brian Wind expansion from the Bones 5 Kickstarter. These are village folk. There's some of them. These are kind of off-duty pirates. And then we have a barkeep, a female barkeep. We have some, prostitutes, and a bed. And yeah. Now these have been quickly speed painted, and what I mean when I say speed paint is that I try to use as few layers of paint as possible. So I tried to do a zenithal undercoat, a priming job, which gives me a basis for light and shade, and then I just use a very, very light base coat, which like a glaze, a thin down paint of a light color, and then a sort of shade wash over that. And sometimes I have to go fix it up a little bit afterwards, but mostly I tried that on each area, and that'll be enough. And that finishes them very quickly, and for NPCs that you're not going to look very closely at, it's fine. Oh, and I also finished repairing this figure. I mentioned that the paint job had gotten chipped on this figure, and I also put him on new base, added some texture to it, so he stands up better. Doesn't fall over as easily, and actually I did a new varnishing job on him, which is better than the old one. The old one was too glossy. This one is sort of in the middle. And I figured out a formula. These are not hopefully don't look as bone dry as the skeletons last week. I figured out the ratio, or I just tested a ratio, and it seems to work well. I use AK Interactive varnish through the airbrush now, and I have two bottles, one of gloss and one of ultra matte, and this is a 1-to-1 mix of the gloss and the ultra matte, which provides a kind of a satin sheen, which is what I prefer. I mean, maybe it could have gone slightly more towards the matte. I'll maybe next week I'll test a 1-to-2, like 2 parts matte to 1 part gloss, and see if that's looks different or better or worse. I keep experimenting. But yeah, 9 figures completed, plus 1 old figure repaired. I think that's good. So with these guys currently on my workbench, I don't think I've done very much with them since last you saw them. Can't honestly recall, but maybe I put an extra wash on them since last time. I'm not sure. Started a little bit on the wood effects here. But otherwise, yeah. It's just the next step, the next set of stuff I'm going to do. Not much to say, really. Well, here's the latest batch of primed stuff. It's not everything I said last week I'd start, because that was a bit much, but there's 8 guys here. And they've actually been primed with the same primer. They look a bit different. This is an interesting experiment. You can tell. So, this guy is metal. It's gray metal underneath. This is the old white Bones material. And this is the newer Bones black. And they've had the same primer. I mean, this is the most clear, telling contrast. You can see how much the underlying plastic shines through the primer, because it's kind of translucent. But this is because I put it on really thin through the airbrush. But I like doing it thin. It doesn't need to be thicker. It doesn't need to obscure detail. And it's that thin because it's thinned out. I mean, I use, in this case, it was this. This was the Desert Tan Surface Primer from Vallejo. And I mean, it's supposed to be an airbrush paint, but even with the Vallejo Air, I don't put it through the airbrush unthinned. I use airbrush thinner. So in this case, with primer, I usually go 1 to 2. So 1 part of this airbrush thinner to 2 parts primer. And I usually do the same with the air paints. If I'm using normal paints, I go even more thinner, like 1 to 1, or even more thinner than paint in some cases, depending on how thick it is to begin with. But here we have a section of various, well, these guys are all pirates. These are sort of a mixed bag. And we'll put some more paint on them by next week. So we come to the end of another episode, and there's still nothing new in the way of miniatures. I mean, there was some last week, but there's still 3 packages from Reaper on their way to me, and 2 of them I know are in the country and stuck in customs. They're actually just stuck waiting for somebody at the post office to actually take a look at the paperwork and, you know, just check that it's already duty paid and just send it on its way to me. It's simply people twiddling their thumbs. But I did receive a package, sort of miniatures related. This is a Kickstarter I backed. For this little model. It's a lot of MDF, and there is some LEDs. This is actually a lighting rig. Instead of just having a simple lamp, it's an arc lamp. It's an idea that you build an arch over my painting space and line it with LEDs, and that will provide light from all directions, or well, not all directions, not backwards and forwards, but from a lot of different angles at once. And this is some ads. These are the instructions with all the pieces and instructions on how to put them together. So this is a project. I'll have to find some time for this and figure out how it works. And I have a feeling I don't want to leave it this wood color. I think I want to paint this, actually. And I'll have to figure out how to do that, because I don't think it'll fit inside my airbrush booth. But I'll work on it in my spare time. And we'll see what happens. Probably not going to be finished by next week. At the very least, it'll take a couple of weeks. So, yeah, that was just a little teaser for what's to come. This episode is done for now. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe and comment. And above all, be back here in a week when I'll rejoin you for more rambling. Same day of the week, same channel, same Dakian, who is now signing off.